So Zdravo, hello, and thanks for being here with me. I'm going to read from a script today. This has been prepared in collaboration with our partners. So thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to be in the beautiful country of Montenegro among colleagues working on heritage, ecology, and cultural landscapes across the region. This presentation is Site Formation and Cultural Landscapes in Southern Republic, North Macedonia. I will be presenting results from a long-term collaborative archaeological research initiative made up of researchers and partner institutions from the United States, North Macedonia, and other locations. This project focuses on how integrating archaeological methods, particularly remote sensing with excavation, survey, and laboratory analysis, can support both interpretation and conservation of complex cultural landscapes. Rather than highlighting a single site or technique, I want to emphasize how methodological integration shapes kinds of questions we can ask and the decisions we can make in the field. This perspective is particularly relevant to the theme of this conference because archaeological landscapes are not isolated place of the past. They're living environments shaped by long-term interactions between people, culture, and nature. So the collaborative structure of the project, our program, is foundational. Research is not being driven solely by external academic agendas. Decisions about where to work, and how data are archived are shaped in partnership with people representing Macedonian institutions. Oh, I think my slides are moving on their own. Hold on. Let's see if I can go back. Maybe I was touching it. Aha, okay, perfect. So archaeological research directly affects land use, heritage management, and public memory. Collaboration helps ensure archaeological science supports the local priorities rather than extractive knowledge production. So this research is part of a collaboration framework involving institutions such as Cal Poly Humboldt, which we've been talking about, the NI Institute and Museum Bitola, and the Institute for Old Slavic Culture in Prilep. The collaboration is long-term by design and emphasizes shared research goals, conservation priorities, and institutional continuity. Importantly, this structure allows us to coordinate excavation, survey, and non-invasive research in a way that aligns with academic inquiry and local stewardship and heritage management needs. So this project began with a central question: how can integrated archaeological science best serve both interpretation and conservation in North Macedonia? Methodological integration is not only analytically necessary, but also ethically essential. In regions like Southern North Macedonia, archaeological landscapes are often continuously inhabited, reused, and remembered. And because of this, no single method can responsibly stand alone. Integrated approaches allow us to produce interpretations that are accurate, methodologically grounded, and align with long-term heritage priorities. Our goal is not simply to document sites, but to refine interpretations of site formation, processes, cultural persistence, and regional connectivity. And by integrating multiple data sets, we aim to understand how landscapes were used, reused, and reshaped over long periods of time. This approach allows us to move beyond static site categories and instead focus on patterns of activity, production, and interaction within broader environmental and social contexts. So the project focuses on several regions in Southern Republic of North Macedonia, including areas around Bitola, which Nick addressed earlier, Cernabuki, Dimir Kapia, and then 5 sites across Pelagonia, Mariovo, Prespa, and Ohrid. In these regions, some sites are investigated through a combination of excavation and remote sensing, while others are examined exclusively through non-invasive methods. This allows us to tailor our methodology to the research and conservation needs of each landscape rather than applying a single standardized approach. So methodologically, this project is built around integration and iteration rather than a linear sequence of methods. Remote sensing, excavation, survey, and lab analysis are treated as interconnected lines of evidence rather than separate stages. Remote sensing provides landscape scale context, allowing us to identify patterns of modification, movement. and spatial organization that are not visible from the ground. Excavation supplies material and stratigraphic grounding, providing chronological and contextual resolution. And then lab analysis then builds the cultural and environmental understanding. Site formation studies anchor all of this within a broader network, a broader environmental and depositional process, helping us interpret how observed patterns came to exist. No single method is treated as authoritative. Instead, each data set informs and refines the others. This iterative approach supports a conservation-first strategy, reducing unnecessary disturbance while strengthening interpretive reliability. So here we have some of the non-invasive methods, and they do play a critical role in this framework. They allow us to investigate large areas while minimizing disturbance to cultural landscapes and conserving archaeological resources. I just want to point out, because Nick had the photo of his son as a baby in the slide, so this is grown-up Dicho here. There, so we work together now, and let's see, where were we at? These techniques help identify areas of archaeological sensitivity, guide targeted excavation, and reduce reliance on extensive traditional survey. From a conservation perspective, this supports more informed decision-making and aligns with research goals with long-term stewardship, particularly living cultural landscapes. So one of our case studies is, or one of the case studies for this slideshow is the 2025 excavation season at Cernabuki near Bitola. Remote sensing data was correlated directly with prior excavation results. This allowed us to identify zones of intensified activity prior to excavation and refine the placement, conserve resources, and the geophysical anomalies aligned with concentrations of material evidence recovered during excavation. And you can see in our photo on the far side, we've laid over a couple different of our remote sensing methods. We have like our GPR and LiDAR, and then here is an example of what it would look like after it's excavated. So you can kind of see what it would look like before and how we targeted it. And then now this photo is laid into that spot on the map. So we can start to kind of piece together what's going on, but we're learning from our remote sensing. And so our newest excavation from 2025 is not present here yet on this photograph, but we will lay that over in the future. And as we continue to work that process, we continue to understand what we might be seeing beneath the surface. So let's see. So these correlations strengthen confidence in interpretations of spatial organization and activity areas across the site. The integration of data sets at Cernabuki led to an important interpretive shift. Earlier interpretations emphasized the site primarily as a military outpost. However, combined remote sensing and excavation data revealed evidence for sustained production activities embedded within the site. This suggests a more complex socio-political and economic role. This example demonstrates how integrated methods can challenge long-standing assumptions and open new interpretive possibilities. So in addition to the excavated sites, we have 5 locations across southern North Macedonia that we've been working with and are being documented and investigated exclusively through remote sensing at this time for our role in this project. These sites span periods from antiquity through the medieval era and into the present. By relying on non-invasive methods, we're able to document long-term patterns of human presence while respecting contemporary land use and minimizing impact on the archaeological record. The additional 5 locations of the project include across southern North Macedonia that are being investigated exclusively through remote sensing, again, at this time, are Plaušnik and Ohrid, Zrza, Treskovec, St. Nicholas and Mariovo, and Krbanovo, selected because of their cultural significance, long-term continuity, and the need to prioritize conservation within living or highly sensitive landscapes. And this is part of the Byzantine monastic centers in Republic of North Macedonia, put on by the Institute for Old Slavic Culture and Prelip. At the sites like Plaušnik, remote sensing allows us to examine spatial organization and architectural density across a multi-layered sacred complex without disturbing areas that remain active, religious, and cultural spaces. Similarly, as Zerza, non-invasive methods help contextualize habitation, monastic architecture, and surrounding landscape features within a broader sacred environment that has been continuously reused over time. High elevation sites such as Treskavec benefit particularly from landscape scale analysis. Here, remote sensing helps us understand visibility, access routes, and spatial relationships across a dramatic topographic setting without intrusive intervention in fragile mountain environment. In Mariovo, the monastery of St. Nicholas demonstrates how non-invasive approaches can reveal the scale and organization of a monastic and economic center embedded within a rural landscape, even in the absence of excavation. Finally, Kurbanovo highlights the value of remote sensing where traditional archaeological data are limited. With minimal excavation and sparse written sources, spatial context and landscape relationships become essential for interpretation, allowing us to situate the church within broader patterns of settlement and land use. Across all 5 sites, remote sensing supports documentation of long-term human presence while respecting the contemporary land use, minimizing disturbance, and keeping interpretations open and revisitable. These sites demonstrate how non-invasive methods are not a limitation, but a strategic choice aligned with conservation, ethics, and long-term heritage stewardship. Beyond site detection, the project also considers the experiential dimensions of landscapes by examining how features are positioned within topography and how movement through spaces is structured. We can better understand how people interacted with these environments over time. The perspective highlights continuity and change in landscape use and helps us see archaeological sites as part of a broader lived environment rather than isolated ruins. So when viewed collectively, the data situate Macedonian sites within broader regional and Balkan and Mediterranean networks. Patterns of production, movement, and settlement suggest connections that extend beyond these individual sites. And integrated methods allow us to examine these relationships without relying solely on excavation-intensive approaches. And an important outcome of this work is its relevance for conservation and public engagement. Integrated data sets help identify areas of high archaeological sensitivity and inform long-term planning. This approach also creates opportunities for public interpretation that reflect the depth and continuity of human engagement with these landscapes. Here we've got on the upper corner some students from Macedonia and some members of our team. We hosted a talk, conversation with some of the young people, Macedonian students, and where they could ask questions and tell us about their experience with the site. It was a really, really important part of our journey as well. And then on the bottom, there's a brochure that was in the museum when we came back after excavating 1 year. And the following year, they published a brochure and it included pictures of our team excavating. And when I realized that, I realized how important our collaboration was on both sides, and was really honored to not only be a part of their material that they're producing, but it helped us to realize how important the collaboration is and how much it becomes a part of the story. So when we're working together, we are now integrated into the story. So now we have to go forward in the future with this. Let's see here. And in closing, this project demonstrates that conservation through innovation is not simply about adopting new technologies. It's about integrating methods thoughtfully within collaborative frameworks that respect both cultural and environmental contexts. By combining remote sensing, excavation, lab analysis, we can better understand archaeological landscapes as long-term ecological and cultural systems shaped by human interaction with the environment. In this way, archaeological research contributes not only to the academic knowledge, but also sustainable heritage stewardship and deeper engagement with the landscapes and communities that they continue to inhabit today. And then here's just our last photograph, and we were lucky enough to have some of the young people from Macedonia, some of the young students helping us excavate, and some two of the kids' mothers part of the Macedonian diaspora. So she's in Australia. They were back visiting, got to help us excavate as well. And that was just like a really full circle moment where everybody realized like this is really important that we get to be a part of this. My role being a student at Cal Poly Humboldt and a part of the research program under Nick Angeloff has also been to work to not only keep our focus on the project itself, but to turn the gaze on ourselves and our engagement with our Macedonian colleagues and our university's engagement with our Macedonian colleagues. So thank you guys for joining.
Thank you. Thank you. You are sharing your experience with working with colleagues from North Macedonia, and I will have one question, but first I want to ask someone else have a question before I start.
Came so far away, we have to use you here to discuss so on. We, of course, here in Europe don't have that experience working with natives because we all feel somehow being natives here in European context.
Yeah.
And how it actually looks like if you compare excavating in a native lands or native heritage, because the land is, of course, US context today, and comparing it with excavating archaeology here in Macedonia, for example.
Yeah, well, that is a really good question. And the answer to
Maybe don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that leads me to a part of this presentation that's not included, but it's in my mind and in my heart. And that is also experience for our students from Cal Poly Humboldt. So as a student at Cal Poly Humboldt and somebody who's worked in cultural resource management there, I have not had the opportunity to participate in many excavations. So we mostly use non-invasive approaches. And so this opportunity to work here has actually afforded me opportunities to work in our Native American communities back home. So I've only participated in one excavation back home, right around the corner from my house. And so I think that's a big part of this collaboration. And we continuously meet and talk with our Macedonian partners. We talk with them once a week usually, but we realize the advantages on both sides, right? And so our students get opportunities to practice excavation methods or to use excavation, to learn excavation methods. We also use California excavation methods along with the Macedonian excavation methods so that both the students from either side can get that experience. And so it's been a really wonderful thing both ways. And so I think we're realizing as this unfolds, as this collaboration continues to grow and unfold throughout the years, we're realizing the advantages for all of our students to work together and to gain experience.
For example, when you excavate in native context in US, if I understand properly, there must be local community included into that process somehow with their approvals or.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. They're involved every step of the way. And before we go out on projects, we reach out, we have people come with us. So especially when we're working with even like private contracts and stuff, we'll reach out to the local tribes, request that they come if they share information. And it's a collaboration, something that Nick's been working on developing for years in Northern California, which has paved the way for people like me to come in and be able to continue those relationships because they've already been built on a foundation that's collaborative.
And the native speakers was very strongly connected even with hundreds and hundreds of years before.
Yeah.
Different.
Yeah, and it's an honor to work with the Indigenous California population as well. And I learn things every time I go out, and sometimes there are things that that seem like once you know it seems like so obvious, but I wouldn't know if I didn't have a guide there to help show. So things from all the way from like geology and uses of plants and things like that. So it's been really neat.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Have any experiences with populations that were close to your work because excavations are on private land? We have a lot of such situations, for example, in Slovenia. They just don't want that some archaeologists come and destroy the pasture or whatever. They don't want that they use the roads. They sometimes obstacles, or they sometimes use machines and completely destroy archaeological site. I think this kind of mentality comes from times after the Second World War when it was necessary to cooperate with the state, no matter how good or bad decision of the state was. And this is, I think, still kept in the memory of people. So that's why they sometimes don't want to cooperate. Do you have such experiences in America?
I think on a broader level, yes. Personally, I haven't, and most of that is because of the projects that I've been involved in and the way that it's been set up through the firm that I work for. And as Nick has mentioned earlier, that the collaboration and the communication is really positive. So I personally don't have as much experience with it, but it's probably something Nick could speak more to. And yeah, so, yeah, come on. Please, yeah,
The answer is yes. So in the after World War II, and prior to that. No. World War II, and prior to that as well. The resource laws started coming into place, and people were, especially in the logging industry, and any oil and gas industry, they would simply destroy the site for archaeologists to get out. Any commercial activity, that was a goal. That's changing over time. People got in trouble, they got put in jail. And that's one of the reasons it's so important that we have cultural representatives in the project from the beginning. It took a good 2-3 decades for that to start happening, and a lot of the advocacy work came from Northwest California. A couple of tribal elders now were young men, American Indian movement. They were part of that in the 60s, and it drove the cultural resource law today. People don't like this, even in Macedonia. Some people don't want to dig into their government. It's private land. They have to go through the regulatory process. They cannot destroy it anymore. They'll go to jail. We're set up now to where if you want to do what you want to do, if you want your permit, we are going to be there. Now the interesting part is to develop a good relationship with the developers. So that's it. I'm sorry.
No, that's wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. And another part of that, like being a student myself and having fellow students who are from members of local indigenous tribes and are highly involved in the work that we're doing. And so it's more of there's more connection there too as well. So there's research projects going on by students from indigenous communities locally, leading these research projects and involved. And so there's a lot more collaboration as well. Yeah. Where we're in a pocket, so.
Thank you.